gon, gon, gon.
Ukamuro. Ukamuro is a Japanese urban legend about a ghost that appears outside your door 1 week after you hear about him. Warning: this is a cursed story. If you don't want to be visited by Ukamuro, do not read this story. Ukamuro is a Japanese ghost, but no one knows for sure what he looks like. They say the reason for this is that if you see Ukamuro, you will die. Ukamuro appears to any person who hears his name. There is a possibility that he will come about a week or so after you hear about him, especially if you have forgotten about him in the meantime. He will suddenly appear outside your room and start pounding on the doors and windows with a
Dun, dun,
sound. No one else can hear the knocking except the person who heard the story. When that happens, you need to keep your eyes tightly shut and keep chanting Ukamuro, Ukamuro, Ukamuro until he disappears. He might disappear after a few minutes, but sometimes it could take as much as few hours. Whatever you do, don't open your eyes until he has disappeared. It is said that once you know about him, Ukamuro will appear to you within a week. Once you have survived an encounter with Ukamuro, he will not appear to you again. If you are a nervous person, please pay attention to the sound of knocking on your doors and windows over the next week. Note: there is one ancient Japanese book that contains an illustration of a ghost called Ukamuro. It says that late at night, if you hear a noise outside your house and you open the front door, you will see a gigantic, hideous, disembodied head sitting there on your doorstep. Here's an account of a Japanese person who encountered Ukamuro.
When I was a junior high school student, my friends and I were very interested in the supernatural. We'd often buy magazines with ghost photos and scary stories. We would spend hours reading them and scaring ourselves out of our wits. My friends often got scared that they didn't want to bring the magazines home. They would give them to me instead. After a while, I had a big stack of scary magazines on my bedside table, and I would often read them at night before going to sleep. One night, I came across an interesting story in one of the magazines. It was supposed to be true. It's not the sort of story that could scare you to death, but you might die if you're not careful. It was a very short story, barely more than a paragraph, about a ghost. It said that if you read the story, the ghost would come back and knock on your window or your door, and if you didn't recite his name 3 times, he would come into your room and cut off your head. I continued reading the magazine as usual and gradually dozed off. But just as I was about to fall asleep, I heard what sounded like a faint knock window frame. But when I realized it was in the middle of the night and there were no birds around, I looked out the window, but the curtains were shut and couldn't see anything. I started thinking about the story I had heard in the magazine. Could it be true? I was trying to tell myself if it was just my imagination. When I heard the knock again, this time it was louder.
gon, gon, gon.
I got scared and recited the name of the ghost over and over. Even though it was decades ago, I can still remember it. Ukamuro, Ukamuro, Ukamuro. Then, nothing happened. The knocking stopped and everything was quiet. After a while, I got up and went over to the window to open the curtains. There was nothing outside. I still don't know what it was, but after that, I was always wary about reading these cursed stories. I feel like sometimes they come true. Smiley face. The smiley face is a creepy urban legend from Europe about a man who does terrible things to girls who walk home alone at night. This story is also known as the smile of the clown. One night, a teenage girl went to a nightclub with her friends. They had a great time, drinking and dancing, and it was 3 a.m. by the time they left. Her friends lived in a city, but the girl lived in the suburbs. They said goodbye and went back to their apartment, leaving the girl to make her own way home. Unable to get a taxi, the teenage girl decided to walk home on her own. On the way, she had to cross through a park. It was very dark, and all she could hear was the clacking of her heels echoing in the night. She thought she saw something moving in the bushes, so she quickened her pace. Suddenly, a man appeared from behind the bush and blocked her path. His face was hideous. It looked terribly scarred and misshapen. She tried to run, but he cornered her and grabbed hold of her arms. The frightened girl pleaded for her life and tearfully asked to be let go. The man's deformed mouth twisted into a leering grin.
Do you want that or smiley face?
He asked. Please just let me go, she cried.
That or smiley face?
He insisted. The girl didn't know what he meant. Smiley face, she replied. Without a word, he pulled out his knife and sliced the corners of the girl's mouth up to her ears. Her face was left completely deformed. She was scarred for life. Whenever people saw her in public, they said she resembled a grotesque smiley face. The Pale Man in Pan's Labyrinth is based on Tenomi, a Japanese urban legend about the ghost of a blind man who has eyes on the palms of his hands. Tenomi means eyes on hands. There was a blind man who was attacked by robbers. They beat him viciously and left him to die alone in a field. As he lay dying, the blind man cried out in anger and frustration. If only I had seen their faces, but my eyes can see. If only I had eyes on the palms of my hands. Because he died in such a state of rage and agony, the blind man returned as a ghost called Tenomi. His desire for revenge was so great that his blind eyes were gone and he grew a new pair of eyes on the palms of his hands. Now Tenomi roams through cities and villages, searching for the robbers who murdered him. He is able to see by holding his hands out in front of him. But Tenomi never saw the face of his attacker, so he simply kills whoever he can get his hands on. Although he has eyes on his hands, he is still figuratively blinded by his anger. One night, a Japanese boy was dared by his friends to go into the graveyard and test his courage. As the boy walked through the cemetery, he suddenly saw an old man emerged in the darkness. As the figure got closer, he noticed that the old man was blind and had eyeballs on the palms of his hands. The terrified boy fled as fast as he could. He ran into the temple and begged the priest to help him. The priest told him to hide in the chest and then went off to hide himself. When Tsunomi entered the temple, he wandered around with his hands held out in front of him, searching for his prey. The boy crouched in the chest, not daring to breathe as he listened to the sound of footsteps coming closer and closer to his hiding place. The footsteps stopped right next to him, and he heard a strange sucking sound. In the morning, the priest came out of hiding. He opened the chest to let the boy out,
But when he peered inside, he was horrified. The young man was dead. Tinomi had sucked all the blood and bones out of the boy's body, leaving nothing behind but his limp, saggy skin. Fushi Muji-san. Fushi Muji-san is a creepy Japanese urban legend about a girl who uses a social networking site and is irritated by a creepy person she meets there. It is supposedly a true story, and it happened on a Japanese social networking site called Mixi. There was a Japanese girl named Miko who was a member of an online community. One day, she received a friend request from a member called Hushimuji-san. Miko clicked accept and added Hushimuji-san to her friends list without thinking much about it. The next day, she got a message from Hushimuji-san. Miko is 21 years old, but she is still not married? It made Miko feel a bit uncomfortable to be asked such a personal question, especially by someone she didn't even know. However, she thought it would be rude to ignore it, so she wrote a brief reply. I am a student at the moment, so yes, I am still unmarried. Almost immediately, she received another message. Do you have a boyfriend? Where do you live? Please tell me your real name. This was too much for Miko. She was irritated and sent a stern reply. I'm not answering those questions. I will remove you from my friends list if I hear any more strange things from you. After that, she didn't receive any other weird messages. However, 10 days later, Hushimuji-san contacted her again. Please change your profile image now. If you think you are watching your face by other men, he will want to kill you. Please remove all men from your friends list. Miko was creeped out by this. Enough is enough. She decided to remove Hushimuji from her list of friends. However, when she looked at the updates of Hushimuji-san's profile page, she was shocked. Today, fireworks display. He had written about attending a fireworks display by the river. It was the same fireworks display Miko had gone to see that day. Yesterday, drinking party. He had written about going to a party in a bar. It was at the same bar Miko always went to. Miko had gone to a drinking party with her friends in that bar on the same day. 3 days ago, the beach. He had written about walking on the beach. Miko had also gone to that beach with her friends on the same day. 4 days ago, house. Because I live alone, I spent a day reading novels and doing research on the internet. Miko got goosebumps. That was exactly what she had done on that day. It was like reading her own diary, except it was written by a stranger. It was frightening. With trembling hands, Miko continued to scroll down. 5 days ago, shopping. I went to a supermarket close to my home to buy groceries. I bought 5 kilograms of rice, natto, cabbage, kamabuko, horse mackerel, orange juice, potato chips, and potato and gumi. Miko was shaking with fear. There was no doubt about it. This was exactly what she had bought when she went shopping 5 days ago. She didn't want to read anymore, but she forced herself to continue. 6 days ago, discovery. I found the right person this time. The person I am destined to be with. I have located the house as well. Now I found you, I will not let you go. I will live very close to you. Miko was distraught. She was sick to the stomach with fear. Now she knew he was stalking her. However, there was a high possibility that he knew where she lived and had moved to be closer to her. She was terribly afraid. but she plucked up the courage and sent Hushimuji-san an angry message. What are you doing? How did you know where I would be? Where do you live now? Where are you watching me from? Please stop this at once. You're scaring me. If you don't answer me, I will inform the police. I'm serious. 2 minutes later, she received a reply from Hushimuji-san. Where are you going? I'm at your side. How did you know where I would be? I saw every update you posted on your profile about your plans, what you were doing, and who you were with. Where do you live now? I live in a room on the 5th floor, same as you. Where are you watching me from? From the closet.
Hairdo. The hairdo is an urban legend about a vain woman who styles her hair into a bun and never bothers to wash it. This story is also known as the fatal hairdo. A few years ago, there was a middle-aged woman who was very vain and would always wear her hair up in a big bun. She was very proud of her hairdo and thought she was the most fashionable of all her friends. She had no idea that her hairstyle had gone out of fashion years before. The woman was very lazy and didn't like having to spend time cleaning and styling her hair. Instead, she just left her hair as it was and never took it down at all. In fact, she never even bothered to wash it. Whenever she took a shower, she would wear a shower cap to make sure the water didn't mess up her hairstyle. At night, she would sleep with a towel wrapped around her hair to make sure nothing moved out of place. After a while, her hair began to smell. To mask the odor, she just put hairspray on it. When her hair started to feel itchy, she put more hairspray on it. Even though her hair itched like crazy, all she did was apply more hairspray. One morning, when she didn't calm down for breakfast, her husband went up to the bedroom to wake her up. To his horror, he discovered that his wife had died during the night. At first, the police thought she must have had a heart attack in her sleep because there wasn't a mark on her body. However, when the coroner was conducting an autopsy, he couldn't figure out what had killed her. Then, he examined her hair and found something horrendous. A black widow spider had made its nest in her hair and laid eggs. When the baby spiders hatched, they had bitten through her skull and eaten into her brain. Hairdo. The hairdo is an urban legend about a vain woman who styles her hair into a bun and never bothers to wash it. This story is also known as the fatal hairdo. A few years ago, there was a middle-aged woman who was very vain and would always wear her hair up in a big bun. She was very proud of her hairdo and thought she was the most fashionable of all her friends. She had no idea that her hairstyle had gone out of fashion years before. The woman was very lazy and didn't like having to spend time cleaning and styling her hair. Instead, she just left her hair as it was and never took it down at all. In fact, she never even bothered to wash it. Whenever she took a shower, she would wear a shower cap to make sure the water didn't mess up her hairstyle. At night, she would sleep with a towel wrapped around her hair to make sure nothing moved out of place. After a while, her hair began to smell. To mask the odor, she just put hairspray on it. When her hair started to feel itchy, she put more hairspray on it. Even though her hair itched like crazy, all she did was apply more hairspray. One morning, when she didn't calm down for breakfast, her husband went up to the bedroom to wake her up. To his horror, he discovered that his wife had died during the night. At first, the police thought she must have had a heart attack in her sleep because there wasn't a mark on her body. However, when the coroner was conducting an autopsy, he couldn't figure out what had killed her. Then, he examined her hair and found something horrendous. A black widow spider had made its nest in her hair and laid eggs. When the baby spiders hatched, they had bitten through her skull and eaten into her brain.